Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video today. Yes, today. Yep, you heard me. Today. What we're going to be doing is looking at the different types of jewels in Wizard101. Now, it's not the cool type of jewel, alright? Don't jewel stay in school, all that kind of stuff, you know? You're not having a good time with these. Jewels are kind of difficult to find, rather annoying, and just kind of sad. But, and this is a heavy but, they're very, very useful. So, going to be going over the best jewels that you can do for each socket. Oh, that was so sad. Where to get some of the jewels, all that kind of stuff. You know the gist. I need to flee, because that battle you cannot escape quit from, and I know that for a fact. So, let's start off with what are jewels. Well, jewels are things that you can socket into different types of gear. You can see here, it'll start off some of the slots being locked. You can either unlock those with crowns or socket wrenches. I'm not going to go over where to get socket wrenches, just look it up. There's a lot of bosses that can. But you want to unlock them, especially on certain gear that you find to be, that you're going to be using for a long time. So, for example, Morganthithame, Malasterathame, or Yevgeniathame, technically, some kind of ring, whatever ring you're using, Alpha and Omega ring, Aphrodite ring, Morganth ring, whatever. Morganth amulet. Like, you don't want to unlock it on gear that you're only going to be using for 5 levels, right? Because that's just a waste of crowns. Now, there's 4 different types of jewels. There are tier, square, circle, and triangle. I found that the most useful tends to either be triangle or circle, depending on what school you are. Tier isn't really all that useful, and square kind of is just meh. It depends on what you're going for. So let's start off with the tier slot and what you want to get. Now, this one, really, the only real thing you want to do is get health jewels. Health jewels are pretty useful for getting a little bit of extra health. Say you have 2 tier slots on your gear, well, that's an extra 200, 300 health. And say you had 3, that's an extra like 300, 400 health. Honestly, it's not that useful, but it's a little bit of extra health that can help you help pull you over. Also, you could use mana jewels here, but that is just entirely useless. I would not recommend putting mana jewels in. Just put in some health jewels. Next up on our list is going to be circles. Now, circles, in my opinion, are some of the more useful jewels. It's probably the most useful jewel. The 3 main types in this that are going to be useful to you are critical, pierce, and then if you're a healing school, is probably going to be outgoing healing. Personally, I like pierce jewels the best. I would always recommend that on Firestorm, really any school you're going to hit with. I mean, even schools that you're not normally going to hit with in PvP, it could be a good idea to get those as well. One enemy I would recommend farming, because pierce jewels are kind of annoying to get, is one in Crescent Beach. I think Crescent Beach is up here. Let me see. Oh, it's not exactly, but it's close. And that enemy is like the ice enemy that you see, or I think it's ice. Not these guys. You go further down, and they're down over here by Skull Rock. They're either ice or life. I don't remember which. I forgot you can't go down here, but yeah, it's the guys over here. Wait, I still need to get to them. Let's talk about jewels in the meantime. Now, the reason why I would recommend Pierce is because it's actually quite useful to have, especially, like, you know, if an enemy uses a -50 shield, well, guess what? I pierce through 25% of that. It's really useful. These are the enemies I was talking about, by the way. The White Razors can be pretty useful for getting pierce jewels. I remember that they drop quite a few variants, so look them up and see if they drop what school you are. If not, that sucks. Next, let's go over square jewels. Square jewels are ones that I find to be pretty infrequent on gear. They tend to be on wands, sometimes amulets. The thing I would recommend getting on them is either a universal resist. It's not like especially useful, but like in earlier worlds it could be useful. Also, if you say an enemy uses like Wild Bolt and it gets the 10 damage, it's going to do 0 damage instead. It's just a little bit of a useful thing. You can get probably some amulets give 2 square slots, and then your wand can give 2. So you could probably get up to like 80 universal. And obviously it's not percent, it's a flat, so it does 22 less damage. The thing I would recommend probably above all, though, is if you have stun block. Stun block can be incredibly useful. For example, my death has a 6% stun block, and it's stun blocked once. So hey, that's already, I gotten my use out of it. So definitely I would recommend stun block jewels if you have them. I don't really know what else Square has besides really that. Oh, it also has block jewels. You can put block on things, especially if you're in ice, maybe to be useful, but personally I wouldn't recommend it all that much. And then finally is triangle. Now the reason why I consider triangle to be triangle to be my favorite jewel is because it holds both accuracy and power pip jewels. Now, the reason why I like those so much is that, for example, my fire normally couldn't get up to 100% power pip chance, but because I have a triangle jewel on my Athame and my Dex, I can get, you can see here I have power pip jewels on all my main decks. I can get up to 100% power pip, which is one of my favorite stats to have in the game because pip failing is really annoying. And you can also use accuracy if your gear gives more power pip and less accuracy. But for example, the fire gear gives quite a bit of accuracy already, up to where I will never fizzle. So I don't need to put a accuracy jewel on that. I'm not sure if I have a character that has accuracy jewels on it. Maybe my death. I'm not sure. I don't know what my myth's up to. You can see here, yeah, I got power pip jewels, some critical jewels, you know, a few minor things. I just have the critical jewels because why not? And then the power pip jewels are just pretty useful to have, to be honest. Definitely would recommend them. Now, the ultimate thing with the triangle thing, or the triangle jewel slot that you might want, is that it can give you a copy of a spell. So what I mean by this is that let me see if I have a triangle slot. Okay. So I have a triangle slot. Yeah, you can see here, right? It gives a gargantuan opal, which, while that spell in particular isn't incredibly useful, there are some incredibly useful ones. For example, at level 15, you can craft a Deer Knight jewel and put that Deer Knight jewel onto a triangle slot on, say, a deck. And then as a death, you don't need to craft Deer Knight. You can just have a copy of a Deer Knight spell with you, and it'd be incredibly useful to have. Definitely would recommend that if you can get it. It is incredibly useful to have, especially you know, as a death who really who isn't going to be using too many other hit all spells. Obviously, if you want to use Scarecrow, you can use it, but that's really it for jewels. That's a basic overview of jewels, the different ones that you can put on your gear, different slots. Just to reiterate, I would recommend, especially as a damaging school, you want health, you want pierce, you want power pip. Those things are all incredibly useful, especially power pip. I think a lot of people underestimate it, but with power pip, right, say I'm doing a detritus run, if I pip fail on detritus, we can't do it in 2 rounds if I'm hitting, right? It's impossible. But since I have 100% power pip, I don't need to worry about that. Ultimately, it is incredibly useful, and an incredibly useful feature that they added to the game. I think that jewels were honestly one of the best things that they've ever added to this game. I completely forgot to go over pets, so let's go over that real quick. Pet jewels, or star jewels, are actually incredibly useful as well, if not one of the most useful jewels in this entire game. And the reason for that is you can add specific stats that make your wizard significantly better. You can see here my fire pet has at base 2 dealers, 1 dealer, 2 givers, But when I add a boon to it, that gives me an extra 4% damage, which is pretty useful. What I would recommend doing is, right, if you train up a pet who's perfect except for one talent, like say you need a dealer or something and your pet doesn't have it, well, guess what? Now you can put the dealer on it by getting a jewel, socketing the jewel. Obviously, you need to be a certain pet level to get certain things, but definitely it can be incredibly useful to just socket and a giver jewel, socket a boon jewel. It'll up your damage quite a bit at the time, and that is really it. Now we finished it. So thank you all for watching this how to jewel video, stay in school, all that kind of stuff. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, if you found it useful, drop a like at the sub button. And I appreciate all the support I've been getting recently, and I'll see you in the next video. Fantastic day.